Um, hey everyone, it's Anna, and Virgo is revealing someone's heavy regret right now. Subscribe because what's unfolding needs your attention. There's someone carrying substantial weight about how they handled you, and that burden is creating pressure in their consciousness that affects them in ways you might not fully see from your current position of protective distance and earned caution. Not light regret that passes quickly, not surface level discomfort they can easily dismiss. Deep guilt, persistent remorse, ongoing awareness that they caused damage to something valuable through their choices, their words, their actions, or their failure to act when action mattered. They replay moments. They see with clarity now what they couldn't or wouldn't see then. They understand how their behavior landed on you, how it affected your sense of safety, how it altered your capacity to be open. The knowing sits heavy. The recognition of harm caused creates discomfort they can't escape through justification or minimization anymore. And your trust? That's the specific casualty weighing on them most heavily. Not just losing your presence in their life, not just losing access to your time or attention or affection, but destroying your fundamental trust in them as safe person, as reliable person, as someone worthy of vulnerability. They broke something that doesn't repair. With simple apology, they shattered something delicate that requires extensive, careful rebuilding, if rebuilding is even possible. And the awareness of what they destroyed sits in their consciousness, creating guilt that won't easily release. In the particular awakening someone experiences after damaging trust, there's often delayed recognition that makes the guilt more acute. They didn't understand at the time what they were destroying. They rationalized their behavior. They minimized the impact. They told themselves you'd get over it, or that they had their reasons, or that it wasn't really that serious. But time and distance and reflection have brought clarity that wasn't available during the actual violation, and now they see it clearly, now they feel it fully, now they carry understanding that arrived too late to prevent damage, but not too late to create genuine remorse. Let me illuminate what patterns might be active in someone experiencing guilt about breaking your trust in the psychology of guilt after trust violation. You can distinguish between genuine remorse and performative regret by examining what the guilt focuses on. Genuine guilt centers on your experience, on the harm you endured, on the consequences you're living with, on the pain they caused that didn't need to happen. Performative guilt centers on their own discomfort, on how bad they feel, on their damaged self image, on wanting relief from guilt more than wanting repair of harm they caused. Your situation likely involves one of these types, and distinguishing matters enormously for how you respond if they attempt contact or amends. Genuine remorse leads to changed behavior, to actual accountability, to understanding that apology without transformation is manipulation, whether intentional or not. Performative remorse leads to repeated patterns, to apologies that create temporary relief but don't translate to different choices, to cycles of harm and apology and harm again that exhaust the person receiving them. Notice if someone who hurt you has demonstrated actual internal work or just expressed feelings about having hurt you. Have they been in therapy addressing the patterns that led to the violation? Have they examined what in them created the harmful behavior? Have they developed new skills or awareness or healing that makes them genuinely different than they were when they broke your trust? Or have they just communicated that they feel bad while remaining fundamentally the same person who's likely to repeat the same harm in similar circumstances. Some people carrying guilt are experiencing it primarily because they lost access to you. The remorse isn't really about your well being, it's about their loss. They feel bad because you're not available to them anymore, because they can't have what they had when you trusted them because the door closed and they're on the wrong side of it, experiencing consequences they created but don't enjoy. Mm. The guilt serves their desire to restore access rather than genuine care for your healing or growth. You might be dealing with exactly this self serving guilt. Someone who hurt you now wants back in, now realizes what they lost, now feels uncomfortable with the consequences finally affecting them rather than just you. Their remorse motivates reaching out, attempting reconciliation, trying to rebuild what they destroyed, not because they've truly transformed, not because they deeply understand the harm, but because being cut off from you is uncomfortable and they want that discomfort to end through your forgiveness and restored access. Others carry guilt that's genuinely about you, about what they put you through, about pain they caused that they finally comprehend was unnecessary and preventable and cruel, even if unintentionally so. They're not trying to get back in. They're not seeking to restore access. They're just sitting with the knowing that they hurt someone who didn't deserve it, someone who was vulnerable with them, someone who trusted them with something precious that they handled carelessly or destructively. This reflection invites you to consider, if the person who broke your trust expressed remorse, would you believe it's genuine transformation or strategic positioning? Let me clarify what "you don't trust anymore" reveals about the broader damage they caused. Don't trust anymore indicates fundamental shift in you, not just losing trust in them specifically, though that's certainly true, but potentially losing trust more broadly in your own judgment for having trusted them initially, in people generally for being capable of the harm they demonstrated, in your ability to protect yourself through discernment, in the safety of vulnerability itself when vulnerability proved dangerous in their hands. The trust violation created ripples extending far beyond just the relationship where it occurred. In the deeper damage of destroyed trust, the person who broke yours might not fully comprehend what they took from you. They see that you won't trust them. They recognize you've created distance or ended connection, but they might not grasp that you're now operating with entirely different paradigm about trust itself. That you approach all relationships more guardedly now. That you're more skeptical automatically, more protective reflexively, less open naturally. That they damaged not just your relationship with them, but your relational capacity more broadly. It's essential you understand this protective response is appropriate adaptation, not pathological damage. When trust gets violated significantly, withdrawing trust and becoming more cautious is healthy response, not dysfunction. You're not broken for being less trusting. You're educated. You're not damaged for being more careful. You're wiser. You're not wrong for having boundaries that didn't exist before their violation taught you why those boundaries matter. Some people who destroyed trust become frustrated when you don't restore it easily. They want you to get over it, to move on, to stop holding grudges, to forgive and forget, as if trust violation is minor inconvenience rather than major betrayal. But rebuilding trust after it's been shattered takes extensive time, takes consistent demonstration of trustworthiness over sustained period, takes patience with your healing process that they might not want to provide because it's inconvenient for them. You might be experiencing exactly this kind of pressure to restore trust before trust has been re-earned through behavior. Someone wanting you to be vulnerable again before they've proven they'll honor vulnerability this time. Someone expecting you to risk again without having done the work that would make the risk reasonable rather than foolish. Your refusal to comply with their timeline for your healing is boundary worth maintaining firmly. Their frustration with your appropriate caution reveals they still don't understand what they broke or what repairing it genuinely requires. Others understand that trust once broken requires extensive, careful rebuilding, that they destroyed something precious that can't be hastily repaired with words alone, that your protective distance is consequence they created and must accept whether they like it or not. These people are willing to demonstrate consistency over extended time, willing to honor your boundaries without resentment or pressure, willing to let you determine pace of any potential reconnection if reconnection is even something you want, which it might not be. This reflection invites you to consider, has your lost trust changed only how you relate to the person who broke it, or has it changed how you relate to everyone and everything? Let me address what you might be feeling about their guilt and what you should do with it. Some people feel satisfaction when those who hurt them finally experience remorse. There's justice in it, in consequences finally arriving, in the person who caused pain finally feeling pain themselves, in karma operating visibly. This isn't necessarily vindictive. It's often just recognition that actions have consequences, that hurting people isn't cost-free, that guilt is appropriate response to having violated someone's trust and safety. In the complex emotions around perpetrators' remorse, you might experience validation mixed with skepticism, validation that you weren't crazy for being hurt, that the harm was real enough that even the person who caused it recognizes it now, that your response wasn't overreaction but appropriate reaction to genuine violation. But also skepticism, because guilt doesn't equal transformation, because feeling bad doesn't mean being different, because remorse without sustained changed behavior is just temporary discomfort that will pass, leaving the same person who caused original harm. It's important you don't let their guilt pressure you into premature reconciliation or forgiveness you're not genuinely ready for. Their discomfort with having hurt you is theirs to manage, not yours to resolve, by making yourself available again before you're actually safe doing so. Their guilt serves them if it drives genuine change, if it motivates actual growth, if it prevents them from repeating pattern with you or others. But it doesn't obligate your participation in their redemption arc or your acceptance of their attempts at amends. Other people feel nothing about perpetrators' guilt. They've moved so far past the violation that the person's internal experience doesn't register as relevant anymore. They're not wishing harm, but they're also not particularly interested in the remorse, not invested in whether the person feels guilty or not. They've healed or are healing independently. They've rebuilt their life without that person in it, and whether that person experiences guilt simply doesn't matter to their current reality. You might be in exactly this space of healthy detachment where their guilt is information you can note without it affecting you emotionally, where you're neither glad they're suffering nor interested in alleviating their suffering, where you're simply neutral about their internal state because it's no longer your concern or your responsibility. This detachment often indicates advanced healing, having processed the violation sufficiently to release the person from occupying significant space in your emotional or mental landscape. Still others feel complicated mix that includes anger that guilt arrives so late, grief for what could have been different if understanding came sooner, exhaustion at thought of dealing with their attempts at amends, protectiveness toward the self that was hurt, that doesn't want to risk being hurt again by re engaging. All of these responses are valid. All are reasonable reactions to trust violation and belated remorse. This reflection invites you to consider, do you care that they feel guilty? Or has your healing moved you beyond caring about their internal experience? Let me speak to what you should evaluate if they attempt amends or reconciliation. Real amends include specific components that performative apologies consistently skip. Specific acknowledgement of what they did wrong without minimizing or justifying, clear understanding of how their behavior affected you without centering their own feelings, demonstrably changed behavior, proving they've done internal work to be different. Respect for whatever boundaries you set, including the possibility that you might not want any contact regardless of their transformation. In assessment of whether amends deserve serious consideration, you're evaluating both their words and their sustained actions over time, both their stated understanding and their demonstrated capacity for different behavior. Do they take full responsibility without any "but you did this too" qualifications? Do they focus on your experience or on their discomfort about having hurt you? Do they respect your need for distance or pressure you to engage before you're ready? Do they prove change through consistency or just promise it through intensity? It's critical you protect yourself from being manipulated through guilt or love bombing into reconciliation that doesn't actually serve you. Someone feeling guilty might do dramatic gestures, big declarations, persistent attempts at contact, all designed to alleviate their own guilt through your forgiveness rather than to genuinely honor what you need for healing. Be deeply skeptical of intensity, of urgency, of pressure disguised as passion or care. Real amends are patient, respectful of your boundaries, focused on your healing, not their absolution. Some situations might warrant giving someone who violated your trust another careful chance after they've demonstrated genuine transformation over sustained period, not days or weeks, but months at minimum. They've done therapy addressing their patterns. They've examined what in them created the harmful behavior. They've taken full accountability without defensiveness. They've changed visibly in ways others can confirm. They've respected your boundaries completely. They've been genuinely patient with your healing process. If all that's true and you still want reconnection, very slow, careful rebuilding might be possible, though never guaranteed to succeed. But many situations absolutely don't warrant second chances. The violation was too severe, the pattern too entrenched, the person's capacity for change insufficient, or your healing requires permanent distance regardless of their transformation. You're allowed to acknowledge their growth without wanting them back in your life, allowed to appreciate their remorse without forgiving them, allowed to wish them well from permanent distance. Their guilt doesn't create your obligation to participate in their healing or redemption. This reflection invites you to consider if genuine amends were offered with evidence of real transformation. Would you even want reconnection, or is the distance actually what serves you best? Someone feels guilty for what they did to you. They carry remorse about trust violation, about harm caused, about consequences their choices created. You don't trust anymore? The damage extends beyond just that relationship, affecting how you protect yourself generally, how you assess safety, how you engage with vulnerability, creating appropriate caution that didn't exist before they taught you why it should exist. And your work is honoring your healing process regardless of their guilt, setting boundaries that serve your protection, not their comfort, evaluating any amends attempts with healthy skepticism and careful observation over time, remembering that their feelings don't obligate your response or your availability. You get to decide if and when and how you might ever trust them again, if that's even something you want, which it very well might not be, which is completely valid and deserves respect. May you honor your broken trust as teacher. May you protect yourself without apology. May you heal at your own pace entirely. May you trust again when you're genuinely ready, not before. They carry guilt for what they did. You carry wisdom from what you survived. Their remorse doesn't require your participation. Your healing belongs entirely to you. Remember this: you weren't wrong to trust initially just because trust was violated. You weren't naive. You were open and human. They were unsafe. You weren't defective in your judgment. The lesson isn't never trust anyone. It's trust more carefully, trust more slowly, trust people who earn it through demonstrated consistency over extended time. Trust, but verify. Your lost trust was stolen through their choices, not foolishly given through yours. Protect yourself wisely now, but don't let their violation convince you that trust itself is always dangerous, just that it's precious and should be extended carefully. They broke it. You're healing from it. That's the accurate story. Don't let guilt rewrite history.